Hey guys, this is Myleek. I am here with CURLBOX for a very special mental health checkup with Maui Moisture. I am here with Maui Moisture's Curl Squad, 2 members, vlogger Kennedy Keonce, lifestyle influencer Dana Bolden, and licensed clinical therapist Dr. Ayana. We are going to have a really open and transparent conversation about the state of social media, our mental health, what's happening. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into this conversation. Thank you guys for coming, everyone, for this. So mental health awareness months are upon us, and mental health has always been so important to me. And so I really wanna know how you guys are doing as content creators, and I'm assuming also consumers of content. Like, are you okay after 2 years of probably, you know, when you get that Instagram check on your phone, it's like, how much time have you been online today?
I stopped looking.
How are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, do you feel things have changed since in the last 2 years?
I'm doing okay today.
Right.
That's how I'm running things. I'm taking it day by day. Yeah. Some days aren't good. Today is a good day. Yesterday was a good day.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that tomorrow is a good day. That's really how I'm handling myself when it comes to social media as a whole, because you never know what you're going to see online.
Yeah.
Every day there's something that could turn everything upside down. So today, it's a good day.
So when you talk about things turning upside down, is it current events, or could you see something that can just trigger you? Like, and I don't know what it could be, but you know, you and I were talking about just like feeling envy, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but like, let's keep it real about envy as it relates to social media.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think it's natural, you know what I mean? Even as an influencer, as someone who puts their life out online to share and hopefully inspire, I think it is natural that people can easily be like, oh, I want that, or she has that, or she's doing that, or she got that brand campaign. And I think even for me, it's like I have to be able to check myself and just take breaks and just back. If I feel myself, you know, feeling away, it's like, okay, girl, take a break. Get offline for a little bit so that you can just kind of recenter yourself, because it's so easy to fall into that comparison trap.
Yeah, I feel like at the start of the pandemic, I was getting so many people, like bots. You want to think they're bots, but they're real people. They're real people who are like hitting you up and hating, and I don't know if y'all deal with that, of like, do you experience people?
Oh my God,
I think it's what's, a lot of people have fear about being on social because they don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, my page is hanging on by a thread as we speak, because y'all have people reporting stuff that doesn't need to be reported.
Really?
Yeah, it happens more often than it should, and I'm in communication with Instagram to try and get it handled, but yeah, that happens a lot.
They're reporting?
What do you
Reporting
think it is?
Okay, let me give you an example. I've been working on my flexibility, okay? And I had kicked my leg up, and I said, you know, watch out, because I can knock your head off. Jokingly.
Next
thing I know, I'm getting reported. I said, well, wait a minute. And they said this goes against our community guidelines. This is violence. I said, violence? Girl, this was a joke. And even still, like, I'm not threatening to do this to someone. I'm saying I could and I would if I need to, you know. So that has been a little bit of a stressor for me, having to pay attention to the words that I'm using and how I'm using them, because I know I have people following me at a larger scale now. I have a lot of followers. My page has grown, and there are people who I don't know who are following me who might be triggered by something that I'm saying, or who are just trolling and are reporting me.
Some people are following you not to support you, right? They're following you to cyberbully you, and people don't actually really talk about cyberbullying in that way, trying to get pages taken down, trying to do all these things that impact your impact. Yeah. Right? Yep, it's another form of bullying.
But to go back to what you were saying about seeing things and it making you feel a certain type of way, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was still in New York, and I was not happy in my apartment, in the place that I was living. I loved my neighborhood, but I was ready to move. And I would be scrolling, and I'm just like, damn, like this, you know, I want my stuff to look like this. This is the type of situation I want to be in. I want a life of ease. And my answer to that was to change my situation. I wasn't going to sit and be mad about that anymore. I needed to make a change, and I did. And that's what I wish I did see more of. It's like, if you don't like something and it is within your means, make the change. I think that I've at this point in my like maturity and my evolution, I know that if I want something, I can make it happen for myself. And so how do I go about doing that? I'm spending more time trying to think about, I'm strategizing how to create the life that I want for myself, as opposed to envying other people's lives.
Yeah, and that's where I think some people have to be able to make that difference, right? Because it's like you use it as a source of inspiration to say, hey, I want to get up and do better, while others are like, oh my God, they sit and they envy, and it's like, how do you make that difference to say, hey, I want to do better?
It's the doom scrolling, right? And that depends on where you are in your own life. And some people don't even realize that they're doom scrolling. They're just kind of going through things and, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, they have this, and we do this comparison, right, the trap, right? Because we try to line up what feels like these, comparable things. So we are both Black women, we are both, women of a certain age, we both live in this area. We try to kind of find all these connecting points, and then we zone in on the differences. Well, if we have these 5 things in common, why wouldn't I get that invite? When it's like, oh, you have 5 things in common that you can see and that you think you have in common, but there's so many differences between you in terms of the work that you put in, the network that you, all these different things, right? But our brains don't really go into calculating those things. We just look at, well, no. I should be able to have access to those things because they're possible for this person in this way. And it makes sense, right, that as humans, we want to be liked. That's the core of all. We want to be liked, we want to belong, and we want to be accepted by people. But social media has become this new avenue to like seek that acceptance and that validation and that approval. But the difficulties or the issues with social media is that these are not oftentimes real relationships. We call them like parasocial relationships. We think we know you because we see parts of your life that you choose to share with us. And that's usually a few minutes or hours of your day. But we think we know so much about you because we know what you like to drink. You like a latte that has
right, you get the same one every day. Every day you post when you get it.
So I must know you.
Yes.
I must know you. And then that factors into how I talk to you. That factors into what information I feel entitled to about you when you share this, but you didn't tell me this part of this, right? It's not actual social relationships where it's like kind of this shared mutual interest and desire and engagement. I just think I know things about you and I leap into that, and that's the boundary issue that we've talked about, right?
Yeah, I'm so curious about like better boundaries online for content creators, but also for just like ourselves, and I think sometimes, my big sort of aha over the pandemic was like, I think, boundaries are a big conversation, and it's like, no, and everybody thinks it's like that, but it's like the boundaries that I set with myself, and then me not going back on the things that I want to do. So it's like, I'm so curious, like, what are some good boundaries for content creators online? Like, how can content creators be better about boundaries?
So I think I love the boundaries conversation, right, in general, but I think it's hard for people to set boundaries if you don't kind of do some of that back work in terms of like, what am I even here for in the first place, right? So we can get into like, stop doing this and time this and change this up and, change your feet up, and all those things are really, really important parts of boundaries. But if you are not truly connected with what am I doing here? What am I accessing from this space? What am I pulling from this space? Do I have other spaces to do this? You'll get really confused about setting boundaries, and they'll be reactive, and it's going to be really, really hard to sustain them if you don't come back in and say, what am I doing? What trends am I noticing even when I find myself jumping right online? It's just because my phone is here and now I've just got this habit of doing this? Or, have I really created a way in which I'm going into this because I need to make 3 posts, and I'm going into this because I'm really searching for this hashtag because I'm looking for this thing? But being able to start with, what am I doing this for? What am I influencing? Like, what's the population that I want to engage with? That really shifts how you would show up online. And then you could set boundaries around how much time you spend, who you're willing to respond to. If you need a social media manager, and it doesn't need to be you answering questions like in your comments or something like that. But if it doesn't start with you, it makes it really hard to implement and kind of sustain something. So having some questions about, what am I doing here? Is this for me and about me? Who is this for on the other end? It gets real muddy if that is connected to money, right? Because it's just like, okay, they want things from me that may or may not align with my values or who I really feel safe talking to on here. So if you don't really think about all those other factors beforehand, it's going to be really hard, right, to just start implementing a whole bunch of stuff and feel good about it. It's going to be reactive and not sustainable. Right? So something I wonder a lot about with influencers and kind of creators on social media, do you understand or do you feel connected to your why in this, and like how you're doing this, and if this is a platform that kind of aligns with that?
I always go back to when I feel anxious or when I feel like it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I go back to, why am I here? Why am I creating this content? Why did I even start my brand? What am I doing? And even when, you know, people say, oh, I want to be an influencer, I just want, because they see maybe the success of other influencers, or they see, you know, people getting certain things, but it's like, okay, but why? What are you here for? What do you want to provide? What value do you want to give? And I think that's so important. And that helps me center myself when I feel like I'm just like overwhelmed. And because I don't have to share every part of my life. If it doesn't correlate to my why, I don't need to share it. And I think that's something that, you know, as an influencer, I've been able to, you know, take with me for sure.
How about you, Kennedy?
I'm very transparent, and I'm also very clear. I'm a vlogger, so I'm on YouTube often sharing a lot of my business, but I'll say very plain, like, listen, I'm talking about this today, don't ask me about nothing tomorrow, okay? I might be talking about it here, but I don't need you asking me any questions about it. I feel comfortable sharing this, but I don't feel comfortable with you asking me questions about it. And I think in being clear like that, it just establishes a relationship of like, listen, I can tell you whatever I want to tell you. You can't ask me whatever you want to ask me. And I'm just clear about that. The boundaries are set.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you, because obviously people think they know us, right? Just like you said. You know, you can be outside the grocery store and somebody like, hey girl, like so familiar, like they know me. I'm like, did I meet you before? And that's fine, because I think we have set that kind of, I don't know, precedent with our brand, relatability, which is amazing. But how do you, because I know sometimes you're like, you're so funny online.
Thank you.
But then, you know, you're like, I'm not a comedian. Just because you met me, I'm not about to sit here and make you laugh. You've mentioned that before. So how do you like set that boundary?
I think I'm still working on that, because I do think there's an expectation for me to show up and perform or entertain for people. And it's like, I'm not that girl. I'm actually very quiet. I love conversation, but when I'm comfortable, I'm a normal person. And so I can give you what I have. And I always like to, you know, ask people to be honest about a situation. Like, if we don't know each other, there shouldn't be this expectation for me to be anything more than a new person who you're just meeting today. Even if you have been watching me online for years, we just met.
And I'll see people say, oh, she isn't, I met her and she's not real, or she's not nice. Or she wasn't the same. I forget what the saying is, but like this expectation that I think there's this expectation that you have to be honest, you know? It's like, people can be whoever they want to be online, but there's an expectation of honesty. There's an expectation of, you know, I remember somebody saying like, we bought your house, and it's like, what? Like, but just this idea of that my eyes on you are how you eat, you know, and it's a really hard thing. I mean, it's like I own a business and I have influence. I don't fancy myself an influencer. But like just some of the comments that are hurtful and harmful. And I do think that it is harder and much more difficult with Black women, like with the comments and the expectations. Is there anything behind that you like, that you know of, like, why is it this way?
Well, I think if you put that in context, that historically, everyone has felt entitled to Black women's bodies. We are the mules of the world. So of course it would show up on social media in this way, where they say, I made you.
Yeah.
I did that for you. You couldn't do this without me. We've seen it, right, with different kind of campaigns and brands, and when something happens that people feel disappointed in or confused by, they go straight to that.
Yeah.
I created you, right? It's I can go on a whole soapbox about capitalism. I'm gonna bring myself in, right? But that's where it starts, right?
Okay.
That historically, for hundreds of years, right, people have always felt entitled to our bodies, our labor, our intellectual property, our care, our nurturing, all of those things. So, of course, when you show up online, same thing. Right? It's literally like dance for me, perform for me. This is what you are here for. And depending on the company, right, the kind of entity that is sourcing creators, right, they do the same thing. So, right, so black women get it from both ends. Black women get it from kind of companies that say, yeah, you got to do this at this time, use your body in this way, do this. We don't actually care about what your life actually looks like. And then they send that same message to the world that says, well, yeah, you are here for me. You wouldn't have this house, or you wouldn't be able to move to this place, or whatever. You wouldn't be able to go on this vacation if I didn't buy your products. So because of that, I now feel entitled to how you show up here, how you talk to me in public, taking pictures with me, like those kinds of things, right? We see that all the time. Like if a celebrity doesn't take a picture with someone, they're now blasted, right? For having boundaries. They're actually blasted for having boundaries, right? But what it's told is that, well, I'm your fan.
Yeah.
I like you and I've reposted your stuff. You owe me a picture. You owe me this moment in my life because I want it from you. And I think that, so outside of those moments, I think black women also just don't have a lot of support around setting boundaries, right? So even if we are to set our own boundaries, oftentimes the entities that we are working with in our kind of the agencies also don't come in and advocate and say, oh, you get to say no to this, you get to not do this. They oftentimes will say, well, you need to comment more, you need to engage more, you need to be nicer, you need to take some pictures, fix your image, and that really factors into black women getting really confused about if I'm allowed to set boundaries. That's always been our story. Am I allowed to? How dangerous is it if I set a boundary? Because look at how people will be more willing to attack me than they would other ethnicities and other genders.
Yeah, if I turn my comments off, or if I don't respond to a comment, it's...
The backlash is much, much greater.
Yeah.
Much greater. And particularly for black women, as we're kind of moving into, the highest rate of entrepreneurship, but still the lowest capital, we have a lot more to lose.
Yeah.
So we're much more likely to move our boundaries around because we need this money to look a certain way, right? So because we don't have, the same history in terms of independent wealth and kind of not needing to be certain ways, so we can kind of get this kind of income, we're more likely to move those boundaries around.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk trends. There's always something that everybody's doing. I mean, it's like you have to keep up with everything. We were in a luxury moment. Are we still in a luxury moment? Sheena, are we still in a luxury moment?
Right. Some of the girls are in their luxury moment.
Okay. So it's like, how much pressure do you feel? Like, will people watch you if you're not doing luxurious things or unboxing? Will people watch? It's like, do people want to see things if you're not glamorous?
They will.
They will.
They watching me. Yeah. I ain't doing that. I'm not in my, and I could be, but that is not the focus, and that's not something that I think I would make the focus of my platform, because I do know how that can turn into something else and create a standard that I don't think needs to be met. And so, personally, no. I think people will watch you no matter what you post, but I do think that there is a big trend of people wanting what they don't have, and luxury is one of those things that you have to work to get to. It's not easily attainable, and so you see somebody else with it, it's like, I want that. And as a community, we've always aspired for money and nice things, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's important to step back and say, where is this on my value system? Why is it that I need that?
And what is your why, right?
What is my why?
Because that may not be your why. Like, even for me, it's like, we may be able to afford those things, but it's like, I don't need to share the unboxings. I don't need to show the new bag, but it may be another blogger's why. That may be her thing that, oh, I'm a luxury blogger, I'm gonna share this stuff, but I'm not that. So I think it just goes back to that, but also from a consumer perspective, it's like, what is my why as well? Like, why am I coming online? Am I coming online to see girls unbox? Is that something that brings me joy? Maybe it is. Maybe it brings me a sense of motivation. Or is it depressing me? Because at that point, I need to like back off of that person's page and say, hey, I'm gonna follow the girls that look more like me, because that brings me joy. So I think it's like, from both ends, knowing what your why is.
I see a lot of like, oh, I'm unfollowing, like, and I do wonder from like a standpoint of like, this person I don't think is trying to upset you, or, but I guess maybe it is the healthier thing, the healthiest
It is.
thing
I
to
think
do.
it's better. It's like if you following somebody that's unboxing Gucci bags every day and it's making you upset, then it's
But
like,
I think
girl,
sometimes people will unfollow people who are just like
Doing well.
happier or seem unbothered. It's like, yeah, I can't, I don't want to see that.
And that's when they need to do the work, right? They may need to go to therapy to say, hey, what is it in me that I can't celebrate another Black woman doing well? She could
I
just
think
be
everybody
sharing.
needs to go to therapy.
That too.
If you are unhappy watching me being happy, unfollow me now.
Right. Because it ain't going to change, right?
It's not going to change. I do think it's important for a viewer to take responsibility of themselves in that moment. Yeah, absolutely. Like, why am I following this person? Am I supporting them or am I following them? I want people to follow me as a supporter. I want you to support me and like me because you like me, not because of the things that you see. I don't want you following what I'm doing. That's not important to me. I don't think that's healthy either. Support me. That's where I wanted to stop and end. Enjoy what I'm giving you. But following me, I don't need you to follow me. I don't want you to follow me. I want you to figure out what you want. And if those things are similar to what I have or what you see I've got going on, amazing. If they're not, amazing. We are two different people experiencing two different lives. It's okay for us to want different things and to have different things.
And the world has a really hard time with Black women doing well. It's a newer phenomenon, and the mental health and race is what I right.
Yeah,
the world has a
that's
very,
real, though.
very hard time with it, and the world not only meaning non-Black women, Black women also sometimes have a very, very hard time.
That's the
with
hardest.
Black women being well.
I think that's hard. I mean, I know that, you know, it's like you go places. I always say I will have to work hard for a long time because I like nice things. And it's like you go places and it's like, I want to enjoy this. And the first thing people do, they see you in spaces they don't think you belong. It's like, so what do you do? How did you get here? You must have come a long way. You couldn't afford this, you know? And so it's like, I expect that. So like my girlfriend, we every time we take a trip, you know, we're at the pool, it's Tuesday at 12 and we're poolside and everybody wants to know, how the heck did you two get here? And so it's like, so what do you do? We even have had people send us over drinks to crack the conversation, to be like, you know, how? But I do think that it is harder for me to swallow when like other Black women who in my mind I feel like I am like in support of, or in my mind, I might think I'm inspiring, or like, you know, I did a podcast for a decade where I basically gave away like free things, like here's all the stuff I learned. And so I think it was really, you know, I think the first year that I experienced financial success, I don't know that I have ever cried more times in my life, having been reported to the Better Business Bureau, having been, you know, sued by friends, like all these different things that happen. And so I would like to hear more about like, you know, what you know and like why it's so difficult for people to see Black women getting it and like doing the things.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about with comparison. It goes back to what we were talking about with, you know, history, that one, we are not used to this, so we don't know what to do. And oftentimes when we see things that we don't understand as humans, it shouldn't exist. That is what we have learned. Like, oh, no, I don't get it. I'm not like that, so it just needs to actually go away. And the other piece is that it begins to feel like competition, and competition wasn't something that, you know, that Black women kind of created amongst ourselves. It's something that we were taught. Right, there's only going to be 1 to 3 of you that can make it into this, so then you're pitted against each other, and that's something that we have just now internalized, right? I remember even, I'm gonna say it out loud, right, that I was one of the when I was younger, right, saying things like, you know, I just need to have more like guy friends. Girls, they're too much drama.
Yes.
They're too much like, they're too catty. It's too much of this and this. Like, I'm just better around boys. Like, thinking that I was like really,
I've heard that.
Really mature and like really like, I'm just like really down to earth and chill, and girls got too much going on. It starts that young. That starts at 5, 6. That starts really, really young, the kind of gender norms around that. So we're just seeing more examples of that, and people having more access to people on social media doing that same thing. That's a phenomenon that's been there for years. But again, when the scope or when the sense is that there's not enough for all of us to have this, you become a threat.
I feel like that happens with men too.
It does. It does, but men are not judged in the same way for
I
it.
mean, like, even when if there's not enough for us, I feel like we do that not just with like financial success or jobs, but also in like with men, like of like feeling like there aren't enough men, and maybe there aren't. Maybe we don't have time for that today.
That's a different conversation. Bring me back.
I know, but I do feel like that shows
Absolutely.
up for us too.
Absolutely. One of the first things I had heard when I was moving to Atlanta was the ratio.
Oh, honey.
That's how it shows up, the ratio.
Yeah.
I can
but
tell
I
you
remember-
something. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I know, she says I'm about the ratio. I know about the ratio.
Is it real?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. What,
Okay.
like 10 to 1?
Yeah, but just even the ratio being factual, what does it set up when you're already kind of prompted to think about how hard it's going to be, how difficult it's going to be, you know, what again, this is if you're a heterosexual woman and kind of man, right, that you're already prompted, right, to look at women in a different way, right, when you all have this eyes on what the world has told us is the prize of men. That's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right.
There's 10 of us
Yeah.
going after this one. This one is very competitive. Wow.
I ain't in the running.
Yeah.
I'm not competing for nothing, but I do recognize that there is competition. And my experience online, I think that's the only time where I have to check myself, like, okay, Kennedy, stop it, you know? Somebody's gonna like you because you are you. And it's not because you're not outside at the club popping a bottle. It's not because you don't have on the new Louboutins with the this and the that. And it's not because you ain't, you know what I mean, stacked to the, you know what I mean? Atlanta, we know Atlanta.
You gotta have peach.
Atlanta,
all
gotta
that.
have it.
Now I got the beach, but you know, it's more than just the peach. You know, it's the whole thing. Where's your lace wig? Where's your nails? Where's the makeup? Where's the lashes? All of that, all
of
the
that.
time.
Yeah, for women, all the time.
All the time. There's a lot of pressure to show up a certain type of way, not just online, but for men and for other women too. Just
Yes.
like kind of getting validation from people who are in your community, your peers, people who you work with. A lot of that exists.
And it's relentless. So when we talk about mental health, like when this is what is spinning and everything that you are doing, this is what is on your mind, or kind of this is what you feel kind of prompted to be thinking about, it is exhausting. It is so tiring and fatiguing, and it's never ending. It's so pervasive that it's almost like you can't turn left or right without having some message about how you need to be better. The self-help genre, like how you need to be doing better in this way. You need to make more money, you need to be prettier, but you also need to be really real. You need to be the kindest person and never make a mistake and never offend anybody and have the best boundaries. Like it's just never ending.
I feel like the pandemic made me check myself really about kind of how I show up online, of like all the stuff, you know, I felt I needed to do, but I now realize I was like in survival mode. So I'm like telling everybody, like, you all need to get better, you know? And it was like me just being like, dang, you know, if I knew then what I know now. And like, I do enjoy being able to like let people see me evolve, because we talked about how the internet feels forever. So it's like, I'll go back and look at things like I'll go and do a time hop, like, oh my God, I said that? Like, I don't even believe that, or like, that's all I knew at the time. And so I do want to kind of like, as upbeat as we possibly can, of like, what are some ways we can have a healthier relationship, because mental health is so important. What are some ways that we can have a healthier relationship with social media? What are your thoughts?
Okay, self-aware. So when you were talking, I was just thinking like self-awareness. Like you have to,
I feel like we need to hold self-awareness. You have to be aware before you can even
make a change. You can't do anything about it without knowing that there's something to be done, right? That there's something to shift, that the way in which you are are interacting with other people is not safe or is not healthy. And so self-awareness is not only rooted in you, but it's also rooted in what are the examples that you have, like in your close circle. People really think that they are self-aware because they're also around 6 unaware people.
Ooh.
So if those are your are your guardrails around it, right? The whole crew ain't really moving that much, but it really does start with that self-awareness. It really does start with that kind of knowledge and kind of that intimacy of yourself, and that is quite honestly really hard work. There's a reason that people don't go to therapy, right? Not there. Obviously, there are a number of different barriers that we can talk about, but because it really requires you to kind of do a digging that's really unpretty, that's really unflattering, that gets really messy, that feels really embarrassing, it feels really vulnerable. But if you're not willing to do that work, then the ways in which you're showing up in all these spaces is just reactive. You are just reacting, versus being able to have self-awareness enough to control your responses. Right, I can see something that makes me feel really, really envious, and I can say, "Oh, yeah, okay, okay." I don't need to say anything to you about it. I can see something that makes me really upset. There's somebody who I'm following who says something really offensive. That doesn't mean I'm going to go into your comments and say unfollowing and you need to do this instead, and I'm going to send you some mean DMs and all that stuff. Yeah, and do all like that. But that is because I've been in therapy for 10 years, weekly. Hello.
Also,
right. So there are ways in which I have learned to be able to think about those things and kind of think through them in a way enough where I'm not putting that onto other people, and also recognizing it sucks, but other people get to show up in the world the way they get to show up. I have no control over that, and I need to recognize that that's also none of my business, how other people show up. But if we think that people are our business and we feel entitled to you showing up the way in which I want you to show up, it really gets us into those murky waters, right? And all of that is kind of self-awareness, working kind of that intimacy. And if I am more connected with myself, I'm really less concerned about you showing up in a certain way for me. I'm gonna be okay.
Connected with myself.
I'm gonna be all right, right? And then that allows me to connect with the people in the spaces that are actually aligned with who I am and who I want to be, and kind of the forward thinking, right? But I can't seek those spaces if I don't have my own knowledge of myself.
So would you say, is it natural though to feel a feeling if you see something online? Is that natural?
Absolutely.
So how do you differentiate what's natural and what needs help? Like, how would I know if I need to go see someone?
Yeah, so I think paying attention to the intensity. So we always look at intensity, frequency, duration. All right, so how am I really dysregulated? Am I now kind of going into doom scrolling? Have I gone back, 60 weeks in this person's thing to figure out, like, these are right?
That life 254 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Like, oh.
Am I looking for these things? Am I going right? So that's looking at intensity. How intensely do I feel really connected to this? Can I separate myself from this person or this image or this entity? Do I find myself going back at frequency? Am I going back and like checking this kind of stuff all the time? Am I following a ton of pages that don't make me feel too great about my body image, but I keep following, muscular women that do all this fitness stuff that I don't have time or money for? Have I just followed 15 of those kinds of pages? So you're looking at frequency, right? Then you're looking at duration. Can I go in, can I get in and get out? Or have I lost hours to this, right? Am I not paying attention to my partner or my children because I am just scrolling this thing? Am I actually really experiencing my vacation, or am I on the phone the whole time, right? So paying attention to those three factors can tell you if you're moving into like a lane of that says, there's something going on here. You don't have to even know what the something is to go and like get some help around it.
Right.
And the help is going to be less around necessarily kind of setting social media boundaries versus like what's pulling you into that space. Because more than likely, if you're doing it on social media, you're doing it in your personal life.
Yep.
Social media is just a new avenue, and a really like fast-paced avenue.
Right.
But you were already doing that. Social media, also people say like social media is the problem in my relationship. It's not. It's not. It's an opportunity for you to engage in the problem, but the problem was there before Instagram photos and Snapchat stuff, disappearing stuff came up. There was already something there beforehand. So being able to separate the avenue from what the actual thing might be for you.
What's your advice for people who recognize that they may have that issue and it makes them feel worse? Like they're aware enough to realize like, oh, I'm doing this, but it just makes them sink a little lower. Like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, what is their at-home solution?
So usually it's something around, so a theme that I talk about with a lot of clients is called like distress tolerance. If you don't engage in that thing, what's gonna happen for you? What's gonna come up for you, right? So if it feels really painful to not go on social media because you feel bored, because you feel that there's something that's not happening when you're not on social media, really tap into like, what is so distressing if I do not do these things, right? Also finding alternative behaviors, right? If I have self-awareness enough to know that when I keep doing this thing, I don't feel great, I probably gotta make a list of 3 to 5 things that make me feel either neutral or better. We have this whole, like, it's got to be positive, you got to feel great. You don't. You want to feel different from that, right? So we want to look at distractions. What are other things that you can be doing? Looking at people you can talk to that help you over that hump. Oftentimes, what people don't know, obviously more psychologists know this, right, is that when we feel the intensity of something, it's usually a few seconds, right? So when we feel in distress about something, that doesn't last very long. We think that we're in distress for hours. You're not in distress for hours. What's happened across that, 3, 5, 10-second arc with that, unpleasant emotion is that we grab onto it because we're trying to get rid of it. When you try to get rid of it, you make it last a lot longer. So if I can understand that when I see this person's page or this kind of theme, I start feeling really, really intensely jealous or envious. If I can help myself distract in that 3 to 5 seconds, I can remove myself from this. But I start judging myself. You shouldn't feel jealous. You should be able to see this page. You should be able to just figure out the meal plan. Whatever the things might be, then that stuff lasts longer. So you want to look for distractions. You want to look for people you can talk to about kind of what's going on for you. You also might want to gravitate towards what are some pages that I can look at that actually help me to feel neutral or better. For some people, that's puppies.
Yeah.
Kittens. For some people, that's some of their own friends, just kind of seeing their pages. For some people, that means I need to unfollow these pages. For some people, it means kind of finding other kinds of support online. Something that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to social media. We can talk about all the ways in which it's difficult, but depending on where you are a Black woman in this world, if you are isolated, social media has actually been really, really healthy for you to find women who look like you, to find women who have, hair textures that are like yours, to find women who are talking about things, because if you are in certain parts of Montana as a Black woman, social media is probably really integral to your cultural connection, to your functioning in the world, to know that there are other people who are navigating some of these things. So regionally, emotionally, if you are in households that really feel unsafe for you, if you're in neighborhoods that feel really unsafe for you, social media has become really, really important to kind of access this kind of community, but you still have to have your kind of guardrails, right, around who and how you are connecting with people. And ideally, in you finding, pockets and kind of spaces of Black women you would feel safe, but you still have to suss that out. You still have to kind of discern what spaces I'm in, but it can be remarkably helpful, particularly for young Black girls, to be in certain spaces on social media if they're in, like I said, unsafe or kind of isolating environments. It's actually really good for your mental health to find people who look like you.
Love that.
That's amazing.
I feel
Thank
like,
you.
yes, that's such a perfect way to end. So, super grateful for you showing up, lending your knowledge to us. I am so grateful for the Curl Squad for just showing up. I appreciate all the content that you guys share online. I love watching you. Thank you for sharing your stories. And so we will talk to you guys later.